Now, John Cena did an interview recently for Collider. I'll link in the description the whole interview, but he mentioned three really interesting things about the Bumblebee movie that he is soon going to be starring in. And three of those things, well, one of them is that was really interesting is they asked him if he was a Transformer fan as a kid growing up. And John Cena in previous interviews mentioned how he was a fan of anime and Fist of the North Star and stuff. So that's like 86, 87. And he mentions here how he was a fan of Transformers growing up when it first came out in 84, but he was also a big fan of its rival, the Gobots. And it's funny because when he mentions
official. It's
John
official. John Cena has rock lords.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because like he then goes on to say he knows that the people at Transformers are going to kill him for saying that. Although I guess he's just not aware that they're both owned by Hasbro now at this point. But it's funny to know that
Yeah, but
John Cena.
he's there to promote Transformers, not
Yeah.
not the other brand. Not the other brand that they're not using at the moment.
Which they use the names here.
It's like
and there,
here we
but
have the WWE champion. When you were a kid and watching wrestling, what did you like the most about WWE?
What did you like about Hulk Hogan in the Andre the Giant era?
It's like actually I was a big fan of the NWA, and I really loved Dusty Rhodes and Ric Flair's feud.
Exactly.
It's like, wait, what?
Yeah. So and anyways, he would then go on to talk about what he really likes about this movie. And one thing that he mentioned that really caught my eye, and again, it's one of those things that maybe he doesn't realize what he's saying, but it resonates with us especially, is he mentions how this movie is very story-based and not too busy. And I hope what he means by not too busy is it's not as messy as the previous 5 Michael Bay ones have been, or well, the previous 4. I'll give the first one credit. But the previous 4, at least, in terms of storytelling and how busy they were. And I think it might have to do with, and it goes on to the next thing that he said, the third thing that I want to bring up, is how he's a big fan of the director Travis Knight. And how he really likes a lot of the stuff that Travis Knight does. And like I'm personally, I'm not too familiar with Travis Knight stuff. Wendell, maybe you could let people know what Travis Knight else has also done.
Yeah, so in the interview they mentioned that Travis Knight works, he does stop motion at Leica, and I was like, wait a minute, I know that company. And so the other stuff Travis Knight has worked on previously is stop motion animation, specifically Kubo and the Two Strings, which is a movie I really, really like a lot. Definitely check that out. Other stuff he's worked on is The Box Trolls, Paranorman, Coraline. Like, I'm pretty sure a lot of people that are into stop motion animation like know about those movies and are like, oh crap, this guy's directing it. So it's basically like you're having like I guess I would say an equivalent would be Brad Bird. So the guy that directed The Incredibles, and then he directed one of the Mission Impossible movies that came out really, really good. So.
And see, and that gives me a lot of confidence because I think one of the reasons, and I've talked about this in the past, I think maybe not on this podcast, but I think another podcast, I said that one of Michael Bay's biggest weaknesses, I think, and the reason why the Transformer movies have been suffering, is that I think that he's a good director when it comes to stuff that he could tangibly physically direct. Meaning that like when he's doing action scenes that are, army based, cars, explosions, car chases and stuff, he's good for that because he's there, he could physically deal with it. But I guess in the case of Travis Knight, when you're a quote director for stop motion or when you're a director for CG animation, it's a very different kind of directing, I would imagine. And I think that in the case of Travis Knight, if you're someone who was able to do The Incredibles or any of those,
Brad Bird did.
Excuse me, Brad Bird, did The Incredibles. But if you're able to do like CG animation or stop motion and do it successfully, it shows that you're able to bridge that kind of directing gap. Where while you're not actually physically present for the real time creation because it's done in intervals. You're still able to put out a good product. Where I think that was Michael Bay's weakness was, he wasn't really, all those extremely tiring, as John Cena said, very busy scenes. he wasn't really there for those scenes because those were all done in post.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine. I don't know. I just don't imagine
I was
Bay.
gonna, like, to add on what you're saying. Like, what you're basically saying is, Michael Bay is really good for like action scenes. Like, if you want an action director,
but a legit action scene.
I need a guy to like direct this action sequence. Boom, you get Michael Bay. Like, physical action sequence that's live action. He's definitely your guy that you want to get.
What, and what I mean by action, like, not like CG post, and to give a good example too. Like, I remember when it was BotCon 2011, and it was the Hall of Fame dinner, and Michael Bay was there, and he was like, "Oh, I brought," he was there, and he was all like, "I brought you guys a scene that I'm really proud of," and a lot of us thought it was going to be some kind of scene that would be like with the robots, but no, it actually was a scene where it was like everyone jumping with those flying squirrel suits there from the third movie, from Dark of the Moon, and he was so proud of that scene. And that, again, that sums him up, where he's more about those physically tangible action scenes with stuntmen.
Because I don't think anybody is, to my knowledge, anyone has done that for specifically a movie. Like, I think they did that for like IMAX and stuff, but not for like a Hollywood movie.
I think he mentioned something about that too, where it was like the first time it was being done without any like safety or wire work or stuff like that.
Yeah.
So like it is good though, because again, through John Cena, who I feel maybe he's one of those guys that, while he is a very company man kind of guy, he also is able to be a little more honest. And sometimes he's being honest even though he doesn't realize it himself. But he's kind of giving more confidence for me for this movie, where it sounds like we're getting something that's going to be more of an actual story. And if there is CG, and if there is a lot of like robot action stuff like that, it's in the hands of a director that knows better how to pace that. And again, that busy statement really resonates with me, because busy is the best way to sum up, I think, why the previous 4 movies, especially in the second half of each film, really start to drag, because they get too busy and the sensory just kind of overloads as a human being, and you just kind of get tired.
Yeah, and I think you also kind of, I guess, as somebody has watched all 5 movies, like, you kind of get a little bit tired when they do that cool trick where it's like, oh, I'm gonna grab a human, transform, put him inside my body as I turn into a car, and then drive off, and then do that slow motion, and the camera's like scrolling all around us. And they kind of do it again and again. It's like, okay, you did that trick before. Like,
not to mention, that's a bit of a Michael Bay staple also. Like, I mean, if you saw Bad Boys,
his is you're standing up, and the camera's panning around you. That's his staple. So like, you're standing up and the camera's tilted up at you to make you look bigger than everything. But then the camera's panning around you, like, oh, like some revelation just happened. That's definitely one of his staples.
Yeah, I think that he did that, and then with the first movie, when he did that, I remember with Ironhide, where Ironhide's jumping over the woman.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, exactly.
I think that was him going, like, maybe he was in an audience and he was reading the audience and people reacting to that the first time, and people really liking it and going, I'm going to do that in every movie.
Yeah.
But either way, pretty much John Cena is letting us know that this potentially could be something good. I don't want to say like this is me when I was talking about the last movie, I remember leading up to the last night, me going like, hey, this might actually be a decent movie. Well, we got Anthony Hopkins here, Hot Rod's in the movie, like, how bad could it be? And the funny thing is,
I think they're for me, it's an uphill battle. You got to win me back.
Well, that's what it's gotten to at this point is every movie I've gone into now with such low expectations that when there is a glimmer of something enjoyable, I just focus on that one thing, like a Cogman, like a Anthony Hopkins, where the rest of the movie was just like, it's sad. I tried to rewatch the movie not too long ago on DVD, and I couldn't finish it. I just couldn't. Like, I just kind of like it just got to a point that I was just like, I just kind of was like, oh, you know what? And then I just went to go make myself something to eat, and I just didn't go back to it. I just pulled the DVD out of the PlayStation, because that's how I watch my DVDs. I watch it with my PlayStation. Pulled it out of the PlayStation, put it back in the case, and said, you did good, pig. You did good. You know, like
That's
that's
terrible.
it.
He didn't even do anything. You didn't even
Yeah,
finish.
but it's just it's a
Didn't even
reference
finish the
to
competition. What is
it's
that?
a reference to Babe. But
I know,
yeah.
but he finished the competition. This one he didn't
Yeah,
even finish
Babe.
the movie.
Babe at least succeeded. This movie didn't. But
It's like, you're done
let's hope.
terrible. I'm going to eat you. That's what you mean.
I'm just hoping that John Cena is right, and this is a way better take of all of it.